Tim?
14.
14?
We had 2 11s, so we skipped 13.
That's hilarious.
Oh.
But
all right.
13 is an unlucky number anyways, right?
It is. 13 is a lucky number. It definitely is. And I think we are live right now. For some reason, it's giving me issues for the Twitter live, but it does that every episode. Welcome to Dude, What's the Bid? Episode, I guess, 14. We were just talking about that. I think we did 2 11s. So, and then a 12, and then we're going to skip 13. And just like a high-rise building, no floor 13, no episode 13, even though we all agree it's a lucky number. Here on episode 14. My name is Kevin Hill. I am the co-host here, along with, as always, Casey Larkin from Farelanes. Casey, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Kev. Thanks for asking.
Good.
Hard to have a bad day in my hippo mode t-shirt.
Oh, I know, right? And your O's hat.
Right, baby.
And this week we have a special guest here, Todd Hasselhorst, or Hasselhoff.
Yeah.
Depending on your mood, with Healy Labs. And we are going to talk about tech and freight, and about a little bit, I'm sure, about blockchain. You know, and as the only non-blockchain person on here, I will try to add, just kind of like peanut gallery kind of comments, make sure we define everything, and move from there. But Todd is deep into blockchain, and of course, Casey started FreightWave selling a BITA, Blockchain and Transportation Alliance, right, or association.
Alliance, yeah, exactly. I think it was, I don't know, association and alliance. May have been both. But
great to be here, guys. Thanks for having me on, and look forward to talking all things tech today.
Yeah, I did do a little refresher. I talked to Patrick Duffy earlier this week, so we talked a little bit about blockchain as well. So got myself up a little bit of speed. I only understand about a tenth of what Patrick says because he's so smart. But but let's dive into it. And Todd, tell us a little bit about Healy Labs and what you guys do, and kind of your mission statement over there.
Yeah, sure. So the best way to understand what we're doing is we're creating a standard for a standardless industry, right? So when you think about data in this industry, it's a big problem. You have all these different systems. They don't really talk to each other. Anytime you bring on a new partner, you have to do integrations. It can take months for you to get that new customer onboarded and start actually receiving shipments from them. So what Healy built is a network that connects all these different systems together and then standardizes the data into a single common format. And then we create a master record for that data. So now that all the systems are using the same information to coordinate the movement of those goods from point A to point B. So as soon as one person updates it in one system, it updates it in all the systems that are connected to it. And really, our overall goal is really just simplifying the data, cleaning the data, providing better data, ultimately to solve the perpetual bad data problem we have in logistics.
It's certainly, you have bad data, then you have disjointed data, right? Everyone seems to, and it goes across industries too, right? Is like in all industries, you kind of find, tech firms who built out their own systems, and they need other systems to, I guess it's the birth to death, right? If you take a load in domestic brokerage from beginning to end, how many tech touch points does it touch, and how many of those actually communicate with each other in any viable way?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And each new company that comes on, each new system you integrate with, if you think about it, you have all these different systems. You got to create new connectors for each one. You got to create APIs or EDI connections into each one. Then your team is spent managing those integrations. So you have all these different integrations you have to manage. If one thing changes on one, then that breaks all of them. And so, yeah, it's disjointed. It's data silos. It's really ultimately connecting all these different systems together in a streamlined way so that data can flow back and forth. And then you have all the right data that you need to make a decision and to ultimately, streamline the process.
Yeah. I mean, if data is an asset, right, or data is the new gold along the lines of those Matthew McConaughey commercials, right? Like, I think it's cool to start thinking about your data as an asset.
Yeah.
If you get it out of those silos and let it flow freely, there's got to be a lot more that you can discern from it. Make your job a little bit easier.
Yeah. And in addition, when you think about sharing data, it is an asset, and it's for a company, it's gold. It's their most important thing. So how do you secure that data? How do you make it easy to share with your partners in a way that your competitors aren't going to get their hands on? How do you share data in a way where you're not losing control or ownership of that data? And that's a big problem. And I think creates a lot of apprehension for people, because if this data is my gold for my company, I don't want that ending up in the hands of my competitor. I don't want to put it in this third party system over here, because if I'm putting it in this third party system, they now have control and ownership of it. So traditional systems just won't cut it. They don't provide you with what you need to have control and ownership of your data throughout that whole process. And that's really what our technology does. It allows you to maintain control and ownership of your data, but also share that data in a way that's encrypted, it's secured, it protects you from other people getting access to your data, especially your competitors.
So encrypted and blind to the people that you should be sharing data with, right?
Yeah.
And keeping it secure to where it doesn't leak out into the wild world of your competitors and certainly bad actors.
Yep.
It would be lumped in there as well, right?
For sure. Yeah, hackers. That's been a big topic for people, recently with some of the hacks that have been going on, and people losing hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars due to outages and cyber attacks. So it is definitely a perfect time to look at data storage, processing, sharing of data. And if we want to solve this problem of coordination and streamlining our operations to achieve operational efficiency between different companies we're working with, there's only one way to do it, and that's better data, the ability to share it in a secure way that people can trust.
Yeah, and I think we talk about fraud a lot, in the industry right now, and almost all, 99% of what we talk about is external fraud or fraud by, stealing loads, identity theft, and getting checks coming out to a certain entity that's not that entity, right?
Yeah.
We do very little talking about cyber security in the industry. And I think unless you're a $1 billion brokerage or a $1 billion freight forwarder, or 500 million, but there's a point there that I don't think a lot of people doing $50 million, $100 million in gross revenue have much cybersecurity at all in the grand scheme of things. And they have a lot of payment information, banking information that is not as secured as it should be in this world right now that we live in.
Yeah. High volume, high dollar transactions too, right? Like that's got to be just the ideal customer if you're a fraudster.
Yeah. Yeah, there's many different attack vectors that fraudsters take. And I think in general, having better data, having relevant real-time data helps you eliminate fraud from the equation. Also being able to validate and understand who is who, right? So, is this the right driver, right truck, right trailer, picking up the right shipment from the right location? Those are all very important things.
Absolutely. So, Todd, I know you're dealing with a dog at the moment. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yeah, let me.
It's okay. We deal with dogs. We deal with cats. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, we've had a.
What kind of dog is it? Oh, he's on mute. So let's take this opportunity, Casey. Let's talk about rates. What are you seeing in rates right now? Any movement, any action, any positivity for the end of 2024? How are you as optimistic about rates as you are about the Baltimore Orioles?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Yeah, I think I am, right? We started to see some softening kind of here in the back half of July into August, but I start to see some other things out there. The container volumes continue to be super duper high. We're starting to see the LA markets heat up, certainly inbound and outbound. But too early to tell whether or not we've kind of confirmed the swing back into a bull market for freight. But
so is it also too early to tell if the Orioles are going to go to the World Series? I mean, they're going to make the playoffs, but are they going to flame out?
It is it's the dog days of summer.
It is.
We did eke one out last night against the Blue Jays. We're tied with the Yankees in first place, and Boston, they're scary as well. But anywho, before we talk too much about Orioles and things like that, Todd, I'd love to learn from you a little bit about how did you get into logistics? And you're still on mute, I think. Maybe not. But how did you get into Healy? I think you worked at Uber in a past life. I'd love to, learn a little bit more about, how you kind of realized this problem, and then what made you kind of think this is the solution for it.
Yeah. So I grew up in my dad was actually a dock worker at a warehouse in Kansas City, loading and unloading trucks. So I was always in and around it, right? My best friend's dad was a freight broker. This is all in Kansas City, which is a big freight town. So I was always in and around freight and logistics. And then when I went to college, where I played at the University of Kansas and won the Orange Bowl 2008, my first job there was with a moving company. So I over the course of that summer, I did a lot of work with this moving company. Then when I graduated from school, for whatever reason, I just kept getting pulled back into freight and logistics. At that time, I helped a friend start a freight brokerage. I then left that and helped start a moving brokerage. At the moving brokerage, I got into the software side of the world. So that's when I learned how to build software, learned how to build applications, learned how to build technology. And over the course of the last 15 years, started and sold 2 different platforms in the space, primarily shipping household goods, high value freight, mission critical, and cars. So each time we built these platforms, we ultimately had the same problem, which is you have data in all these different systems, and those systems don't really talk to each other. And so each application, each company that's out there has to build all these different integrations out. And we realized we were spending about 35% of our budget just doing all these integrations, managing these integrations, and making sure all the data was flowing properly. Not to mention cleaning the data, providing context to the data, parsing the data. And so I also at that point had spent, I was deep into, where things were headed from a technology perspective. And in 2016 is actually when I had the idea for Healy. But I realized that the technology that we were using or needed to use, it wasn't mature enough. It wasn't fast enough. There wasn't high enough throughput. it just wasn't the right time for that technology. So I waited until 2022 when I saw that it's fast enough, scalable enough, low cost enough to actually build applications on top of and actually implement this in a way that is what the logistics industry needs. And so we've been building on it for the last 2 years. We did a proof of concept. We ran some tests with some customers, and then just last month we launched our test net, where we actively have shipments going through today.
Very cool. 2022, were you in Miami at that point in time? And what was this kind of epiphany moment where you realized, okay, the tech is where we need it to be to give this thing a try?
Yeah. So in 2016, when I had the aha moment, I was actually shaving my head. And then I had a flash of insight. And Kevin, it looks like we have the same barber. Is that
yes,
true?
Yeah,
we definitely do. There we go.
Yeah, we do. I have a lot of thoughts whenever I'm shaving my head too. It's a good time for meditation.
It is, for sure. So I had this flash of insight. The whole idea came to me. The whole concept came to me at that time. But what I had to wait for, again, low cost, scalable infrastructure. And so I'm going to go highly technical here for a second. But we had to wait for things like account abstraction, zero knowledge proofs, layer 2 protocols, ZK rollups, and a lot of the underlying technology that makes this affordable, scalable, and useful for people. So all of that technology started to come into fruition about 2021. So I just kept my eye on what was happening in the space. And then in 2022 said, okay, now it's a good time. The technology is available for us to actually build this in a way that's user-friendly, number one, scalable, number two, low cost, number three, that also increases profit margins by 50%. And so that's where we're at today with the technology.
Right. The incentive piece is really interesting. We start to get to the token side of it, and why people are joining at such a fast rate. And the one thing we were talking about last week, right, that I think you guys solved for as well, is the need for a data standard. I think when this stuff started to come onto the scene back in the late teens, people were thinking, okay, we need to define all of these different terms and figure out how to share data from these thousands and thousands of different formats for PODs and rate cons and invoices, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it's very cool what you guys have done. Can you, Kevin, do you have a question? But I'd love to learn more about the tokenization piece of it and how it's financially beneficial to get involved.
Yeah, I do before we get into tokenizations, because then I'll have a few questions about that, just understanding it. But yeah, the data standardizations seem to always be the big challenge for blockchain or anything else. And you see the rise of AI and that part of that revolution of standardizing that data, because I guess theoretically AI can take all these diverse data, templates, what have you, and put it into one standardized format pretty easily.
Yeah.
Or much more easily
sure.
than you can get a lot of corporations to agree to all do it the same.
Yeah, exactly. And what we have is a data transformation layer that we use generative AI to transform the data into a common format. Because when you think about data standards, you really have two approaches. Everything's input output, right? So garbage in, garbage out. Well, the only way you can solve the garbage in, garbage out problem is to have something that takes the garbage coming in and cleans it up so that when it's coming out the other side, it's a good format, well structured and contextualized and ready to go. So that is where AI, generative AI in particular, and we actually have a blog that should be coming out in the next couple of weeks about generative AI and its use in cleaning data. But that's really a key component of this, because you have to fix the data problem. So it doesn't matter how much AI you throw at a problem. If it ultimately has bad data, it's still going to make the wrong decision.
Yeah.
And so that problem needs to be solved first. So these two things go, hand in hand with each other, to be able to clean the data initially and then well-structured data so that what comes out the other side is actionable and usable. So that's one component. But if you think about the standardization problem, if you create a standard and then you say, okay, everybody needs to adopt this standard, what that means is that every system that's out there has to change their entire data model to be able to support this new standard. And economically, it's not feasible if you think about it, because not only are you changing your data model, you're also changing what you're calling it in your systems, which means that you then have to train all of your employees and your staff on this new nomenclature of what you're calling something. And so what we built is a transformation layer. Keep your data, keep your model the way that it is, keep running your operations and organization the way that it is. We'll standardize it and then structure that data so that anybody else that plugs into you also has their same normalized data standard inside of their technology, so that all these things can communicate to each other in a way that provides you with clean data that's actionable, that AI can use to ultimately make better decisions.
Sounds good. So let's jump into tokens.
Yeah, tokenization. So it's a big thing, right? Larry Fink from BlackRock said that tokenization is the future of Wall Street. Well, if it works for BlackRock, I would say it works for the logistics industry as well. When you think about data, as we were talking earlier, data is an asset. So what's happening right now is tokenization of real world assets is happening on Wall Street. It's happening at a very rapid pace. When you think about logistics, everything is an asset. It could be items, boxes, it could be your pallets, it could be your trailers, your trucks, it could be the space inside of those things. Those are all assets. And so Healy's the first one to tokenize those assets for this logistics industry, which is a $9 trillion industry. And so what tokenization provides you is ultimately better utility, better liquidity for those assets, the ability to be able to access capital quicker and more efficiently, and use and connect those things in free and flowing ways that ultimately benefit all the users and all the people that are using the technology. So it is an abstract concept. It is a very new concept. I would say if it works for Larry Fink, then it works for us.
It makes sense. And can you explain a little bit about how those tokens are kind of born and distributed? And
yeah, let's do like a real world case of
the life cycle of a token.
Yeah.
So I always compare it to a license plate on a vehicle, right? When you think about a trailer, you have a license. That license plate represents that trailer, and it represents that trailer in the database of the state and the federal government. So anytime that a cop pulls behind you, he pulls your tag number and he looks in his databases and he says, "Hey, are there any warrants out for this person?" Right? So the same concept.
I guess it goes to he pulls that data. This is the owner of that tag. This tag goes to this vehicle.
Yep.
And then is there a warrant? Is there,
and then is there,
yeah.
And is this legit? Yep.
Yeah.
So the same concept is true with data and with other things. So the way tokenization works is that when let's say you add a shipment, right? When you create a shipment, even right now today, your internal database creates a token for that data. It's called a primary key. Mm-hmm. So that reference number is how your internal systems reference that shipment. So when you go to look up, load number whatever or shipment number whatever, it's pulling up that, it's using that unique identifier to find that record within your system. Now imagine that happens at an industry-wide level, so that no matter what system that data is in, it's pulling that same record and it's saying, hey, it doesn't matter if it's in this TMS or that TMS or this ERP, it's pulling that same record. And so all those systems that are connected to it are using the same record. So fundamentally, it's like a license plate for data that helps you identify who owns this data, who has custody of this data, who has access to this data, who has permissions to edit this data across an entire network. And then downstream from there, when you have that token that represents ownership of that data, it also represents ownership of that underlying asset. Who owns this asset? What is the history of this asset, right? So at that point, people can create new models, new applications, new things that interact with those digital assets on the other side of the coin.
So in an instance where, maybe it's a shipper or a broker tendering a load to a carrier accepts the load, goes to pick it up. That stuff is then tokenized within their TMS or their ERP. Mm-hmm. Who else gets access to that? Is that then the broker, right? Then can also, the other person on the other side of that transaction also has access to that tokenized transaction?
Yeah, exactly.
And nobody else?
And nobody else. So anybody that you give permission, anybody you give access to, that's who has access to it. So if there's multiple parties involved and you need to give access to a consignee, or you need to give access to somebody else down in some other application, only the people who have permission to access that data within the network can get access to that data. And so at the same time, as soon as it's updated in one system, that updates all the systems, because you're basically updating that master record, which then pushes that data to all the other systems that are connected to it. So it allows for real-time data sharing, because you're updating it once, and then that system's updating all the systems it's connected to, as opposed to updating this system and then this system and then this system and then this system, which is currently how it's done today.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a myriad of benefits that you get from this type of model and this type of technology. But ultimately it comes down to streamlined coordination. You're able to better manage exceptions because you have better data faster. You have ultimately more relevant information, so you're able to make better decisions with your supply chain and with your operations. You're at that point, you're able to get paid faster because all the documentation you need is there and it's available. And ultimately that leads to more profit, which is something I think everybody wants.
It is.
It is the name of the game, right?
It is.
Yep.
Is there any value to tokens in and of themselves? So, the more volume you do, the more tokens you have, the richer you are. Is that?
Yeah. So there's value from that perspective as well. There's when you think about this, the more data and the more transactions that go through the network, the more valuable that network becomes. The more valuable that network becomes, the more valuable the people who are using the network, the more value they receive back from the network, if that makes sense. So the more data that goes in, the more transactions that go in, the more valuable it becomes, the more value is returned back to the users. And that's, fundamentally different from, traditional Web 2 technology, where let's just use Facebook as an example. You put your data into Facebook, Facebook monetizes it, and they make all the money. You lose control of it. You are the product. You lose control, you lose ownership. But in this scenario, your data goes in, your transactions go in, and you're the one who benefits from that. You're the one who receives the value from that.
So you're talking about values, talking about profits, right? Which is all good, of course, right? But let's talk a little bit about company valuations within this network with tokens, right? And the network effects that you're talking about. Does this make a company's value? Does it make a company more valuable in an in-sell or an exit with this security and tokens, right? This kind of organized form of data.
Yeah. So when you think about enterprise value, your enterprise value is the more profit you make, the higher your enterprise value. So that's one aspect of it. You also have higher multipliers for things that are tech enabled, that have better data, better usage of data, better analytics around data. And so that will have an impact as well. And then, downstream, you have things like AI and that, which gives you higher multipliers. So you have your baseline, which is all your profit, your EBITDA, and then you have your multiplier. So the better your tech is, the more tech enabled you are, the higher EBITDA multiplier you're going to get for your company.
And you have the security portion of that, but you have the security of the quality of business transactions, right?
Accounting, due diligence pieces.
Accounting, due diligence, customer stickiness, right? Customer stickiness that should elevate that as well, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, more secure due diligence, but those business transactions and those customer relationships are a little bit more stickier, a little bit more. I can't find the right word for it.
Loyal,
other than higher quality. Loyal, yes, loyal's good. Loyal's good. Yeah. I wouldn't say higher quality, but I hate the word quality. Quality and synergy.
Yeah.
Those are too much overplayed words in business. Since the dawn of time, probably. But yeah, it's just is it higher quality?
When you think about it, this is a very competitive industry, right? So people are all the time, they're looking for a competitive advantage. They're trying to get a leg up on their competition. As things become more tech enabled, it's starting to become more commoditized. And so the difference is it's harder to stand out, right? So you need to have that competitive advantage. You need to offer something unique that none of your competitors are offering. You need to establish that competitive advantage in order to stay relevant in today's climate. And so that involves technology. And the best way to implement new technology is to be at the cutting edge of what's happening around the world in general. And I can tell you right now, as someone who sees a lot of the technology that's coming down the pike, there's a lot of stuff that's coming. Things are transforming very quickly. Not only just in AI, but edge processing, edge compute. There's so many different things happening in technology, in the technology arena, that's culminating at the same time. People who join our network first, the early adopters, they're the ones who actually benefit the most from these type of ecosystems and these types of networks, right? They get a competitive advantage. They get first mover advantage. They earn more rewards from the network. They get more value back from the network because they're the early adopters. They're the ones who are, who the first ones in. And so it's important for people to realize this technology is coming. It's here. It's time. And it's happening. And so people need to look at. I know it's hard, because you're in the day-to-day, you're in the freight recession, you're just trying to survive, you're trying to find a way to make it to tomorrow because margins are being squeezed. It's a tough time out there in the markets. But there is a silver lining. There is technology that's coming that will optimize your whole entire operations, clean up your data, provide you with more access to customers, provide you with the ability to give your customers a better service, which creates the stickiness, Kevin, that you were talking about. Mm-hmm. That loyalty happens when you're able to provide a shipper with a predictable service. When you're able to say, look, you work with me, I'm going to provide you with better predictability. I'm going to provide you with better visibility. I'm going to provide you with peace of mind, knowing that when you're using my service, it's going to get where it needs to go and it's going to get there on time. And so it's important to, while you're in this mode of trying to survive, you pull yourself up and say, okay, what's happening in the space? Where are things moving next? Because I need to be able to pivot. I need to be able to adjust to new trends that are happening in the markets.
And that the service you mentioned picking up and delivering on time, but it goes far beyond that as well, right? It's about the entire order and the invoicing and the the paperwork that comes before and after that, having visibility and having a pretty consistent delivery of that whenever you need it is as important as picking up on time and delivering on time. Maybe a little bit more important, right?
Just listening to Omar Singh. He was interviewed by I think it's the Freight Pod, Andrew Silver, and he was talking about bringing surge transportation out of bankruptcy. They thought they had a buyer. They'd grown exponentially. He didn't have the time to install a real CFO, and you end up just growing, in kind of a snowball fashion, and somebody is coming to buy the company, and you're having a hard time doing that due diligence, and a big part of the problem, right, is days to collect, right? Problems with cash flow. Kevin, you did a report recently on
credit
report for
profiles.
For companies. So it's interesting to see that the larger logistics companies tend to have a harder time making payments expeditiously.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's to a large extent, it's chaos. I mean, it's organized chaos, and sometimes it's disorganized chaos. I think we've all been there on the floor, and it's pretty chaotic, right? So, and even the back offices are pretty chaotic. Think how much. I was talking to someone a couple weeks ago. They have had 6 million just out there to collect that they haven't even been able to collect on, like 12 months. I was like, what?
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, you're almost a bank. KG, I don't know if he's watching right now, but he always ghosts and always says, brokerage is like a bank, right? I mean, you're trying to pay carriers as quickly as possible, right? So if you have some scale, you're trying to pay them, let's say within 3 days, right? If you're really, and you're trying to collect from Walmart in 90 days, right? So you have this huge gap, and it makes life difficult, and it goes from organized chaos to disorganized chaos day to day in a lot of brokerages, and doing due diligence on your company. It doesn't matter how good you are, you start doing due diligence and you see flaws in gaps in information that you never knew were there. Are there? It's amazing.
It really is. Yeah, we found a stat: 600 billion is lost every year in logistics due to errors, theft, fraud, and waste. And that in perspective, the 23rd largest economy in the world is Sweden, is 585 billion. Mm-hmm. So it's like the old saying, what I spend more money. I lost more money at the bar than I've. It's like the same concept. We lose more money in this industry than the entire economy of Sweden makes in a year.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy. And we also, something else that we know about the logistics industry is that they don't really do too much they don't really do too much unless their customers start asking for it.
Yeah.
Right. So, and where I'm going with this is everything is kind of pushed down upon logistics by corporate America, by the people who are making things and shipping things around, and what their needs are and their expectations are. So as you look out into, I'll say, the corporate arena, or the industry, the corporate, outside of logistics customers, what kind of expectations do they have for logistics company? I guess, in essence, are they adopting these technologies now?
Yeah. So part of it is the governments are starting to push for more digitization across the world. They're also pushing for better data standards, better data management around the world, more privacy standards. The EU has had more regulations come down than the United States has. So you're seeing a lot of push from governments towards better systems, better networks, better technology, because they realize that it's on the track we're on right now is completely unsustainable from a data perspective and from a technology perspective. So at the same time, you have ESGs and you have, the push towards, reducing carbon emissions and things like that. And so shippers that have a big, especially the large ones, they're looking for ways to be more sustainable with their operations, with their supply chain, with their logistics. And this is a very dirty industry, right? And if you can bring that 600 billion that's lost, if you can even cut that in half, that's a huge amount of not only savings for all the parties that are involved, increase in profit for all the organizations involved, but also reduction in carbon emissions around the globe, which is becoming more and more important to a lot of the big shippers that are out there. So better data provides a lot of benefits to multiple parties downstream. And so what we've been working on, and we actually have some deals that we're working on right now that would bring 22 million shipments into the network from 268 retail brands. Those brands are looking for more predictable, more sustainable shipping and logistics. At the same time, the people on the other side are looking for more profit. And so in that scenario, everybody can win.
Okay.
Yes, that's really interesting. Almost 300, large retailers hopping onto the network. One thing that do you think, have you heard from them that this might allow them to shorten their payment terms? It seems like a lot of the gap, right, is that broker who's trying to pay the carrier in 3 days and then having to wait 90 to get paid from Walmart or whomever it may be. But do you think this technology gives them information that they need to be able to, pay things a little bit more quickly? Is there just too much benefit from the extra 90 days of capital that those corporations get?
Well, they're still going to pay their bills in the same time that they currently do. The thing ultimately is how quickly can you get them the data that they need, and how quickly can they process your invoices and get you paid? They're going to hold on to the money as long as they possibly can in most scenarios, because it is beneficial to hold the cash for longer. So, but automating and having having all your ducks in a row, where you have all your documentation, everything's ready to go, everything's uploaded, they have everything that they need. The invoice has been, audited, reconciliation's been done, and now it just needs to be paid. that inherently will speed up the invoice process. Also, reduce the amount of disputes that you have in your invoices, which also speeds up, the time it takes for you to get paid.
I guess predictability is the key to
predictability.
It, right? If you're doing 3 days, 90 days, or 60 days, whatever it is, right? Just having it, knowing that in a predictable way is the most important thing.
Yeah.
You see that on the shipping side, the corporate shippers, and you see that in the earnings results and the earnings calls. And selling to those entities, it's, that they care what they pay for transportation, right? That they know there's some volatility in there, but being able to predictably say this is what we're going to spend on transportation as part of the cost of goods sold is the most important thing, and not deviating from whatever they pick at the beginning of the year, almost, right?
Yep.
Having volatility around that is a much greater sin than the volatility itself.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And if you think about, the industry's been stuck in status quo for quite a while. We have adopted a lot of technology in the last 10, 15 years. But, we're reaching a point now where what's working will no longer work in the future because of the demands that are coming from governments down into big corporations and everything's funneling downhill from there. Right. So, inevitably we have to make changes. We have to make changes on all levels to have better systems, better models, more predictable, more profitable, more sustainable ecosystems, where everybody wins. And that's ultimately what people are looking for. So we're at Healy, we're looking for the people that are tired of the status quo, that want to bring trust and transparency to shipping and logistics, that understand by being transparent and trustworthy, you're actually creating new and better opportunities for yourself. You're providing a more predictable service, which therefore is going to give you a competitive advantage over everyone else, and you'll be more profitable as a result of that. And we've seen a lot of traction around, people who are like, look, we don't necessarily understand how it all works. We don't really need to understand how it all works. We just know that this is where technology is headed. We know that we want to be a part of this change in the world. We want to move things out of this status quo, and the best way to do that is to adopt new systems and models.
Amen to that. Will be hard to compete, I think, if you're not doing everything you can to take your data out of silos, share it as much as possible, and I guess there is this world you're kind of talking about where people kind of hoard their data under their mattresses. But
I don't blame them, by the way, for hoarding their data.
Right.
Everybody out there is trying to get access to it. They're trying to get it. That's how people are trying to get a competitive advantage, is by getting access to other people's data. And
exactly.
So I don't blame them by any means. It's not a problem of the main problem is the incentive, right? The incentive today is that I will make more money and I'll be more secure in my business operations if I hoard my data. Well, when that equation flips to where now it's more profitable for me to share my data, to be more trustworthy and transparent with my data, when that model shifts where now I make more money by doing those things, then the rest of the industry will follow us downstream from there.
For sure. And it's not like it's open source, right? Your data is not open source when you hop onto this platform. It's like the only people that you want to see the data, it seems like, are the ones that have the permissions to see it.
Yeah. It's actually more secure.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Cryptography.
Yep.
Hard to
mess up. And that's where things are headed, right? We've reached a point where, because there's so much data, there's so much information out there, it's hard to actually contextualize all that information. It's in all these different silos. And so what's happening right now is those silos are being broken down and they're being moved into, distributed data silo or data repositories, if you will, that are more secure. I mean, so I wish I could talk about all the conversations I've been having with people, but it's fundamentally fundamentally there's a huge transformation happening worldwide, and the technology that got us where we are today isn't going to get us where we need to be tomorrow. And what the gap between those two, it's fascinating to see what's happening and what's coming in the way of technology that will provide everybody with a better quality of life, a more predictable, more profitable, more sustainable life. And these are changes that are necessary.
And the changes based on security in a lot of ways, right? I mean, I guess the first revolution was all about production of data, and maybe this is all about security of that data or better uses of it.
Yeah, security and retaining ownership while also being able to share it.
Right. It's like the actionable insights piece, I think, that we used to talk about a lot at our previous employer, Kevin.
Yeah.
It's, being able to take control of that stuff, get the intelligence.
Actionable.
And,
over the last, sorry. I was just going to, over the last 10 or 15, I got in the business about 15 years ago. So, from my first day there on the fax machines and stuff.
Yeah.
To today, right? If you look at, just the data sharing and ELDs and, IoT, all of that, didn't exist then. So you have this tsunami of data that has entered the industry, and over the last 6-7 years, people have been trying to figure out how to use it. What's actionable, what's garbage, or what's not actionable today. Because what's not actionable today doesn't mean it's not actionable tomorrow. You just can't do anything with it today. And so everything that's coming out now is that data that you couldn't, it wasn't actionable, or you didn't, maybe it was actionable, you weren't doing it in the right way, now is on the table.
Yeah, it is. And that's the key, right? Data is only as valuable as what you can do with that data. Mm-hmm. And if it's not actionable, it's not very valuable. And the more your data is enriched and the better quality your data is, the more actionable insights you get from it, the better decisions that you can make as an individual or AI can make. It's really, at the end of the day, having that better data is where you make your money.
There's a lot of uses for predictability, and the market's hard to predict anyway.
It is,
right? It's very hard. But engines, transmissions, parts, there's a lot of things that are very predictable.
Yeah.
But it's been tough to be able to analyze the information to create really robust models on doing that as of yet. And that's really going to get better in time.
It will.
On-time pickups, there's a lot of things that are very predictable. The rates aren't, the rates are tied to the economy, right? So it's tough to have really great predictability on that, but better information gives you a better assurance of what's going to happen or what could happen. But there are things that fall within very rules, physics-based type of situations that, follow the bell curve.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And when you're interacting with the real world, there's so many variables involved, it's more than you can even count or comprehend,
Yeah, I mean, like picking the freight market, you might as well pick the stock market, because it's just as likely that you could do either.
Yep.
And you're going to make a lot more money picking the stock market than trying to pick the freight market, right?
Yeah. Well, those are two. That's a good parallel, actually. When you look at the stock market in the 90s, actually 80s and 90s, you remember they had all those people on the floor that were matching bid-ask spread on the floor. The guy picks up a phone and he'd put his hand up and he'd buy. To a large extent, what's happening there is price discovery, and ultimately what's happening in this industry is also price discovery. So the same mechanisms are in place. The main difference is that, on Wall Street, there's only, a handful of companies. They get together, they put all their data into Wall Street's network. And then now they're using AI and machine learning to do a lot of the trading, which to some degree has created a lot more predictability out of Wall Street. It's just in the freight world, there's a lot more variables involved. It's a lot more complex. And ultimately, we're still trying to catch up to, generating and providing the data that we need to provide more predictability.
Yeah, I think on the stock market, right, it's a good analogy. I think the difference, and I've thought about this quite a bit since I got in the industry, is that you have a standard share or product, right? What's behind that, it's not standard, but it's a standard unit. And you buy or sell a share, where in freight, each load is different. It has its different variables. It's more of over-the-counter type of trades, or it's a private contract. If you get into futures and options and derivatives, it's more like that, because you have you have basis risks and things like that, where the stock market's designed to be very standard. So a clearinghouse, right? And if you didn't have the stock market, it would be total mayhem trying to privately conduct price discovery and buying and selling shares between people. It wouldn't make too much sense whatsoever, which is what freight does right now. It's private negotiations all day long.
Yep, it is, and it makes the world go round. Wall Street can't operate without Main Street.
Exactly right.
Yep.
Sure. But I don't know. Maybe we can be like the Wall Street one day, if we start collecting the data entries taken care of, the architecture of it, the formatting and transmissions, so that we can start to discern the things from it that we need to. I don't know. It's interesting, Todd. Will the brokerage of tomorrow look like the stock trading floor of today? Will there be more AI and ML helping move these things, and providing a more frictionless transaction or movement of that freight?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable it'll move in that direction. I don't think it'll ever reach the same level of information asymmetry, but I think it's definitely going to move and trend in that direction for sure. I mean, it is already trending in that direction, but I think it's a matter of time ultimately before. Yeah, I mean, when you talk to people that are in AI, their whole thing is, we're all going to have to find new jobs. I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case. I think it's just going to shift. I think it's going to shift what we focus on, and it's going to shift what we have to do from a day-to-day basis. But ultimately, it's something I think to be embraced. We don't really know what the future has in store for us. We've been at crossroads in history like this before many times, and ultimately, we're just at another inflection point in history that we'll look back on someday and be like, man, do you remember when this happened? Do you remember what happened during this time? It was wild. It was transformational. And we can't really predict what's going to happen, but ultimately, I'm very optimistic that the future of the world is heading in the right direction.
Amen to that. Me too.
It's moving forward.
Yeah,
It's moving forward. That is key. It is key. It is moving forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Moore's law isn't slowing down anytime soon. So
it's definitely not. I was talking to a guy the other day. He was talking to me about quantum computing, and I was like,
my mom's big on quantum lately. It's funny. She keeps sending me all this research, but sorry, go ahead.
No, it's like, a lot of the stuff we work on is insanely technologically advanced. And then I look at quantum and I go, what?
Yeah.
What? It's hard. I mean, even, it's hard to comprehend, to a large degree what's about to happen. But
I you're exactly right about that. It's you can't comprehend quantum computing and what changes that could bring. All bets are off at that point. It's just like, we'll do whatever. We'll do whatever our AI overlords command us to do, I suppose. I don't know, right? I mean, one of the weird things about quantum computing, right, is that all passwords, no matter what, are defunct at that point. All current passwords, right? They can be broken in seconds.
Yeah, because in seconds,
or nanoseconds, right?
Yeah. Which we're already moving away from passwords in general. Not everywhere, but there's actually, that's part of the standards I was talking about from a technology perspective. Leveraging better ways to get access to applications and technology. There's a if you want to do some research on it, it's called zero trust architecture. Zero trust architecture completely does away with passwords. And so that's the direction, things are headed. It's going to be more secure. And I think it's something that we definitely need. We need better security, better systems. But at the same time, we need digital sovereignty, right? We need to have control and ownership of our own digital identity and our own data as a byproduct, right? Yep. Because the opposite of that, I think, is a dystopian world none of us really want to live in. And I think that creates a lot of apprehension for people with technology, is that you basically have two choices. You have open systems, open and decentralized, or closed and centralized. And closed and centralized, that future can be very dystopian when you think about it. If you look at China as an example of an entirely closed, centralized system, they literally have their own internet. So it's closed, centralized, very authoritarian. On the other side, you have open and decentralized, which is more libertarian oriented and more people centered, right? So those are really the two choices that we have, to make from a technology perspective, and from, as people who are building the future. It's important to understand that those are really your two choices. In this system, you have no control and ownership of your data. In the closed and centralized version. In the open and decentralized version, you do maintain control, you do maintain ownership of your data, and you maintain ownership of your, digital identity ultimately.
And in the open system, you also have to protect your data as well, right? Because it's the open system, inherently the wild west in a lot of ways.
It's inherently,
which is still better than the closed system. I agree.
It's inherently secure by nature because of how it operates. So it's actually more secure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Because everything is encrypted. Everything is it's anonymized. It's encrypted. It's you can't get access to the data unless you're you. That's the whole concept around digital sovereignty.
And then if you did, if there was a way, there'd be a record of it as well, right?
Yeah.
Well, unless I sit
You'd have
here
to.
and build a quantum computer, then it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Well,
You are Todd Hazelhorst. You are Todd Hasselhoff.
Well, that gets into a whole other side of things with post quantum encryption. There's actually encryption already that is post quantum. That is.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's nice.
it's this race, that's. And meanwhile, we're here going, wow, this is quite an interesting experience. What a time to be alive, right?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Cool.
But at the same time, there's so much opportunity. There's things are shifting and changing. I understand that change can be disorienting for people. I get it. I understand it. It can be challenging. It can be just, it can be scary. But at the same time, when you understand that change creates new and better systems, and ultimately the direction that we're heading in, more profitable, more predictable, more sustainable future, there's really nothing to fear except for the status quo. Because the status quo won't exist in 5, 10, 15 years.
Control the controllables, though, right? I mean,
yeah,
status quo is something out of our control.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I were a logistics company, I'd be doing my best to become a Healy Hippo or
a Healy Hippo. Trademark that. Trademark Healy Hippo.
Feel free to.
We need to get some of those Hippo mode shirts. Where do I get those? That is a sweet shirt.
Thank you. I think it might be a Barstool Sports shirt. The guy over there, Chef Donnie, he's a character. He's a big Hippo mode guy. But see if I can find the link and send it to you.
Awesome.
No,
I like the sound of that. Healy Hippo.
Healy Hippo.
Healy Hippo
you heard it. You heard it first.
right here, right? Your Healy Hippo tip. It's customer. Customer success. So Healy hippos, right? Hippo mode.
Hippo mode. Instead of the easy button, if you remember Office Depot or Office Max, they would say like, "Oh, press the Healy button," or press the easy button, right?
Exactly.
This is Hippo mode. Go Hippo mode.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Freeways always had, or Sonar always had the Orca. What was the name of the Orca?
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Sue.
Oh, Sonar Sue. That's right.
Yeah, Sonar Sue. It was an Orca.
Sonar Sue. Yeah. So they got the Healy Hippo.
Yeah.
And then under it say "Go Hippo mode."
Yeah.
Just gonna send it.
Just gonna send it. Yeah. That's hilarious. Casey's cooking over here. Are you in the kitchen over there? Is that what's in the background? You cooking up in the kitchen?
That's right, baby.
Serving these folks. That's awesome.
Cool. Well, Todd, thanks for dropping by.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Talk tech and tokens and
yeah,
quantum computing and all of that great stuff.
Yeah, stay tuned, guys. We've got a lot more to come. The next 90 days here are going to be big for us. More and more people are joining onto the network. More and more people are getting signed up and integrated. We've got some, we're going from our test net. We've got our main net launch that's coming up, where everything's going live with that main net. The main net is really the big push here that we're working on right now. So stay tuned if you're interested in having some conversations and building the future of logistics with us. Definitely reach out. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can go to our site, healylabs.com. Feel free to reach out and connect and join the conversation.
Perfect. Thanks again for stopping by and joining us this week.
Thanks, guys. Great to be here.
Thanks, Todd.
Bye.
Well, Casey, episode 14 is a wrap. Oh, that was a good conversation. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was fun. Todd's a cool guy for sure.
Yeah. Any parting thoughts?
Yeah, certainly wouldn't want to be an edge rusher trying to get home to the quarterback past Todd back in the day.
Very true.
See the traps on that guy, but no, I think that what they're up to is really very cool, and encourage all y'all that are listening to go hippo mode and holler at Todd.
See, it has a great ring to it. Go hippo mode, call Healy Labs, and see what's cooking over there. But yeah, so I think freight is freight right now. We're maybe seeing a market move, maybe not. Hopefully the economy holds up for a market to move. A little bit of crazy times in the stock market this week.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I did see this morning interest rates for 30-year mortgages are finally back down under 6%.
Yep. I saw that. I got a notification from the Wall Street Journal as we were sitting here talking about it's the lowest level in 15 months.
Yeah. My source was the unusual whale, but same data nonetheless.
Yeah, I know, same data. The unusual whale.
That. Yeah, are you familiar with unusual whales?
I'm not. I should be though.
Are you on Twitter?
A little bit.
You got to give
I need to get back on that.
Unusual whale a follow. He's the guy that initially started covering congressional stock trading and reporting on that, which has been a huge story. I think he's been referenced in Congress a couple times because Pelosi, I think, is probably the big one, or Tuberville if you sit on the other side of the aisle. But
unusual wells.
Really interesting stuff. And then he also has a trading platform or trading intelligence platform that allows you to see options, order flow, and some dark pool trading as well. So give you an idea if there are any whales loading up on calls or puts for AMC. Apes are still
I am now following unusual wells. There's some interesting stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, dark pools have always interested me.
Yeah, they are.
It's crazy. But anyway, I guess we need to get back to work. Well, let's go sell some stuff today.
Let's do it, Kev. Digitize or die, baby. Start saving that data. Get it out under the mattress.
Exactly right. So that's going to wrap it for this week, and we'll be back next Thursday. Or we're going to continue doing 10 o'clock in the morning. Do you want to change it right now to sometime in the afternoon? I know we talked about it, but let's hash it out here live.
I love that. We have Omar Singh coming on next week.
10 a.m.
I think
Central?
We had initially talked about 10 Central, but I don't know. Happy to see if he has any flexibility.
That's fine. We can do 10 o'clock this coming Thursday and maybe move it to the afternoon. Anyone out there with thoughts about the best time, shoot either Casey or me a message, or about anything else. Always feel free to reach out and contact us, and we'll talk freight or stocks or anything you want to.
Amen to that. Don't hesitate to reach out.
Cool. Well, until next week, we will see you.
Peace.